Clara Voss wiped a smear of oil from her hands and adjusted her goggles just as the plasma engine roared to life. Sparks hissed and danced across the metal panels, sending little arcs of electricity toward the floor. One wrong move, one moment of distraction, and the entire engine bay could explode. She held her breath and tightened her grip on the wrench, feeling the heat from the engine on her face. "Just a few more adjustments," she muttered, her voice steady but her heart hammering. A sudden clatter echoed from above. Clara spun, wrench raised, and froze. A small shadow darted across the ceiling panels, fast, fluid, almost alive. Something had sneaked into the workshop and she had no idea what. Her eyes widened as a tiny, shimmering creature tumbled through a vent opening and landed softly on the metal floor with a soft thump. The creature blinked up at her. It was a baby dragon. Its scales shimmered like liquid glass, a swirl of silver, green, and blue, reflecting the harsh white light of the engine bay. Tiny wings twitched, too small to carry it yet, and smoke curled from its nostrils in tiny puffs. Its eyes, glowing faintly amber, locked onto hers with a strange mix of curiosity and trust. Clara froze for a heartbeat, torn between shock and awe. "Hey, you're not supposed to be here," she whispered, kneeling slowly. But the baby dragon didn't back away. Instead, it took a cautious step forward, tilting its head as if it understood her words. Clara's heart thumped. How had it even survived the station's security? Dragons weren't just rare, they were considered dangerous. A creature like this shouldn't be here, not in a human workshop on an alien freighter. A sharp screech cut through the hum of the engine. Clara ducked instinctively as a stray arc of electricity jumped from the plasma core, sizzling toward the dragon. Her hand shot out. She grabbed the tiny creature just in time, pressing it close to her chest. Its small body was warm, heart racing against hers. The dragon squeaked in surprise, curling its little claws against her uniform. "Easy, easy," she whispered, feeling a mix of fear and protectiveness. Her mind raced. One wrong move and the engine could fry them both. And if the aliens discovered this dragon, she could be in serious trouble. Security drones patrolled the hallways, programmed to detain any unauthorized biological specimens. Clara knew the risks, but she couldn't just leave the hatchling there. She glanced around the workshop, eyes landing on a stack of crates near the back. Without thinking, she bolted, carrying the dragon carefully in her arms, weaving between machinery and sparks. The creature let out tiny puffs of smoke in alarm, but stayed still, watching her every move. Her hands were slick with oil and sweat, but she gritted her teeth and didn't drop it. A sudden alarm rang out, shrill and urgent. Clara froze. Red lights flashed across the engine bay. The aliens, tall, angular beings with smooth, reflective skin, were moving toward the bay entrance. They were fast, their movements sharp and precise. Clara's stomach twisted. They didn't know about the dragon yet, but the second they saw it, panic would follow. Dragons weren't pets here. They were warnings, weapons, legends come alive. Thinking quickly, Clara ducked behind a control console. She set the dragon down gently on a crate, whispering, "Stay. I'll protect you." Nomi, as she decided to call him instinctively, peeked over the edge, tail curling nervously. Clara's mind raced. She needed a plan fast. She couldn't fight the aliens head-on, and she couldn't leave the hatchling exposed. Her eyes flicked to the engine controls. Sparks still danced dangerously close. She had an idea. With careful, steady movements, she triggered a small maintenance sequence, sending a harmless surge of sparks across the floor. The noise and movement drew the approaching aliens' attention. They hesitated, scanning for the source, their sharp senses thrown off by the sudden chaos. Clara grabbed Nomi and bolted for the nearest maintenance hatch. Her heart hammered in sync with the dragon's tiny thumps against her chest. The vent was narrow, but she slipped inside, the metal walls pressing close. Nomi shivered but didn't cry out. For a moment, the world narrowed to just her and this fragile creature, racing through alien passageways with alarms blaring behind them. Finally, she popped out into a small storage bay. The lights flickered and she allowed herself a quick breath. The dragon nuzzled her shoulder, smoke curling softly in the cold air. Clara's heart swelled with relief and fear at the same time. She had no idea how she would explain this to anyone, or how she would keep Nomi safe. But one thing was clear, she couldn't abandon him. Just as she crouched to check if the path ahead was clear, a strange hum pulsed through the floor, vibrating beneath her boots. Nomi stiffened, ears twitching, eyes widening. Clara followed his gaze and froze. From deep within the storage bay, a faint glow began to spread along the walls, soft, pulsing, almost alive. She had never seen anything like it before. The hum grew louder, resonating with Nomi's tiny body. The baby dragon emitted a sharp, high-pitched whistle, and the glow pulsed brighter as if responding to him. Clara swallowed hard. This was no ordinary hatchling. Something about him, something about this ship, was connected. Her mind raced. What had she just stumbled into? And more importantly, how could she protect Nomi and herself before the aliens discovered the truth? From the darkness ahead, a shadow moved. Clara's pulse spiked. Whatever was coming, it wasn't small and it wasn't friendly. Clara's breath came in short bursts as she backed against the storage bay wall, Nomi clinging tightly to her shoulder. The soft glow from the floor panels pulsed in rhythm with the baby dragon's rapid heartbeat, filling the cramped space with an eerie light. Every instinct screamed at her that she was being watched, and when the shadow moved again, sharper this time, she felt her stomach knot. These weren't mere patrol drones, they were bigger, sleeker, alien security units, built to capture or neutralize any threat in seconds. Clara scanned the bay, her eyes catching a stack of maintenance crates and a narrow crawlspace above. She had to act fast. One wrong step, one glance in the wrong direction, and both she and Nomi would be trapped. With a quick, decisive movement, she leapt to the nearest crate, setting Nomi down carefully. "Stay," she whispered, her voice firm but gentle. The dragon hissed softly, smoke curling from its tiny nostrils, but it didn't move. She ducked beneath the crawlspace, squeezing into the narrow vent. Her body scraped against cold metal, and sparks from a loose conduit brushed against her arm. Clara ignored the stinging and pressed on, pulling herself forward with all the strength she had. Nomi's tiny claws scratched at the vent walls as she maneuvered him behind her. The alien's footsteps echoed louder now, metallic and relentless, and Clara's mind raced for a solution. They couldn't just run. The station was too big, but the alien sensors were too advanced. She needed a distraction, and fast. Her hands fumbled along the vent floor, brushing against a forgotten maintenance panel. A quick flick of a switch sent a cascade of sparks raining down into the bay below, a miniature lightning storm that startled the approaching aliens. Their heads swiveled in unison, giving Clara a precious few seconds to climb out into an adjoining corridor. She didn't pause. Nomi squeaked, flapping his tiny wings in alarm, but Clara kept him close. The corridor was dim, lit by flickering panels, and littered with tools and crates abandoned by other workers. Each step echoed, each sound amplified in the tense silence. Clara's eyes darted to a side hatch leading to the cargo decks. A risky shortcut, but it might give them a chance to lose the pursuers. As they slid open the hatch, the air shifted. The cargo deck was massive, filled with stacked containers of strange alien materials. Hovering cranes moved with mechanical precision, lifting crates too heavy for a human to carry alone. Clara crouched low, moving silently between the shadows. Nomi's amber eyes glowed softly, scanning the vast expanse. Then a sudden alarm shrieked from the far side of the deck. Another patrol, faster this time, had spotted the sparks. Clara froze, heart hammering. She knew she couldn't outrun them all. The alien drones were relentless. She needed leverage. Her gaze fell on a nearby stack of crates labeled reactive cargo. One wrong touch and they could explode, or, if timed right, they could create the perfect distraction. Clara weighed the risk. If she miscalculated, she'd burn the entire deck and possibly Nomi along with it. But hesitation wasn't an option. With a determined glance at the dragon, she whispered, "Trust me." Clara grabbed a heavy crate, wedging it at the edge of the stack. Then, using a small energy torch from her belt, she carefully triggered the containment release. A soft hiss turned into a bright flare as the reactive cargo ignited, not violently but enough to draw attention. The alien drones swerved, scanner struggling to adjust to the sudden light and heat. Clara seized the moment, slipping between crates, pulling Nomi along with her. Her lungs burned from the effort, but the sight that met her eyes stopped her cold. At the far end of the deck, a larger figure emerged from the shadows. Unlike the drones, this being was organic, or partly so, with metallic limbs and glowing eyes that seemed to pierce the darkness. Its gaze landed directly on them. Clara froze, realizing this wasn't a simple security unit. It was an alien officer, higher rank, more dangerous. The officer's voice cut through the air, sharp and commanding in a language Clara didn't fully understand. The drones fell silent, awaiting orders. Clara pressed Nomi closer, feeling his warmth, his tiny heart beating in sync with hers. She had no idea if this officer would harm them or simply observe, but one thing was clear: there was no room for hesitation now. Thinking quickly, she scanned the deck. A maintenance shaft led upward, toward a platform where the ship's control terminals were located. If she could reach it, she might be able to send a message or trigger another distraction. She made a snap decision, sprinting across the deck, weaving between hovering cranes and shifting crates. Nomi squeaked, wings flapping nervously, but Clara kept moving, adrenaline sharp in every nerve. Halfway across, the alien officer moved. Its long limbs bent unnaturally as it stepped toward them, faster than she expected. Clara's mind raced. There was no way she could outrun it in a straight line. She grabbed a loose cable hanging from a nearby crane and swung herself over a gap in the deck. Nomi, instinctively following, let out a high-pitched squeal, clinging to her shoulder mid-air. The officer paused, calculating before continuing its pursuit. Clara landed hard on the other side, breath ragged. Nomi's small body pressed against her, trembling but alive. She spotted the shaft leading up and bolted, yanking open the hatch. Metal walls pressed close, and she could hear the distant metallic thrum of pursuit below. Every step echoed, every heartbeat was loud, but she didn't stop. Finally, they reached a small platform above the cargo deck. Clara set Nomi down gently. He blinked at the glowing panels around them, tail curling cautiously. She exhaled, muscles trembling from exertion. For a brief moment, the danger felt behind them, but then a sudden vibration shook the floor. The ship itself groaned, low and ominous. Nomi stiffened, ears twitching, and a soft pulse of light ran along his scales. Clara followed his gaze and froze. From deep within the cargo hold, a massive shape moved under the containers, glowing eyes peering up. Whatever it was alive and it was heading straight for them. Clara swallowed hard, feeling the weight of both fear and responsibility. Nomi whimpered softly, pressing closer. She tightened her grip on him, ready to make her next move. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Something on this ship was far stranger, and far more dangerous, than she had ever imagined. The creature's growl echoed through the deck, low and threatening, and Clara realized with a shock that this wasn't just about survival anymore. The moment of choice had come, and one wrong move could cost them everything. Clara's heart pounded as she backed against the grated platform, Nomi pressed tightly against her chest. The glow from the baby dragon's scales pulsed in response to the massive shape moving below. The shadow stretched impossibly long, its glowing eyes tracking them with unnerving intelligence. Clara had never seen anything like it before. Not just a predator but something ancient, powerful, and aware. Her mind raced for a plan. She couldn't fight it, not directly, and she couldn't let Nomi fall into its claws. Below, the creature shifted, its form rippling with energy. The ship's cargo floor trembled beneath their feet, a warning Clara couldn't ignore. Every instinct screamed to run, but the nearest exit led back into the path of the alien officer and patrol drones. There was only one alternative: forward toward the control terminals on the platform above. Clara tightened her grip on Nomi and whispered, "We're going to figure this out. Stay with me." The baby dragon hissed softly, smoke curling from its nostrils, but it didn't struggle. Clara took that as a small victory, trust established even in a fraction of a second. She scanned the platform above, spotting a series of access panels and maintenance ladders leading directly to the ship's control systems. If she could reach them, she might be able to manipulate the ship's energy flows, maybe even distract or contain the massive creature. But the climb wouldn't be easy. The shadow below twitched, and she realized it had sensed movement. Acting fast, she leapt toward the first ladder, Nomi tucked against her shoulder. Sparks from the exposed conduits lit the way as she climbed, muscles straining, adrenaline sharp in every nerve. The creature below let out a low, resonant growl that shook the air and rattled the nearby crates. Clara's stomach dropped. Each step brought them closer to potential salvation but also closer to being detected. Halfway up, the platform shuddered violently. A crate from the cargo deck below toppled, striking the metal grating with a deafening crash. Nomi squeaked in fright, claws digging into her uniform. Clara froze for a split second, but the shadow moved faster than she expected, twisting around the fallen crate as if it anticipated her every move. It was no ordinary predator. It seemed intelligent, maybe even capable of understanding the situation. Clara's mind worked frantically. She needed leverage, a way to turn the creature's attention without risking her own life or Nomi's. Her eyes landed on a series of energy conduits running along the platform walls. If she could redirect a pulse through them, it might temporarily blind or confuse the creature, buying them time. It was risky, too much energy and the conduits could overload, but hesitation wasn't an option. "Hold on, Nomi," she murmured, quickly adjusting the connections. Sweat stung her eyes as she balanced herself on the narrow platform. She connected the final conduit, feeling the vibrations of the ship's power pulsing beneath her fingers. A surge of energy ran through the pipes, and the shadow below recoiled, glowing brighter for a moment before retreating slightly. Clara exhaled in relief, but the creature's growl didn't fade. It shifted, circling the cargo floor with even more focus, clearly analyzing the source of its disruption. "Good, that's something," Clara muttered, but there was no time to celebrate. She needed more than a temporary distraction. Her gaze fell on the ship's control terminals, glowing faintly in the dim light. They weren't fully operational, but she could probably interface with them long enough to stabilize the energy flows and create a safe path for escape. She slid across the platform, careful not to alert the alien officer above or the shadow below. Reaching the terminals, Clara set Nomi down gently. The baby dragon immediately stepped forward, tail twitching as if drawn to the glowing interface. Clara blinked, realizing that Nomi might be more than a passenger. Maybe the hatchling could interact with the ship's systems instinctively. Her pulse quickened. She didn't fully understand how, but she trusted him. Carefully, she guided Nomi's tiny claws onto the control panel. The response was immediate. Lights flickered, then stabilized, and a soft hum spread through the platform. The massive shadow below froze, glowing brighter again, then emitted a high-pitched, resonant whistle. Nomi answered instinctively, a tiny shriek that echoed across the deck. The creature paused, tilting its massive head, then retreated slightly. Clara's jaw dropped. The baby dragon wasn't just alive. He was communicating with the ship, maybe even controlling it in ways she didn't yet understand. "Unbelievable," she whispered, feeling both awe and fear. The aliens had always thought humans weak, incapable of understanding their complex systems. But here she was, working with Nomi to manipulate the ship itself. Intelligence and courage, human traits amplified by a bond with a creature no one expected. Just as she allowed herself a brief moment of hope, the alien officer appeared on the platform entrance, eyes glowing like twin suns. "You shouldn't be here," it said in a low metallic voice. The drones behind it moved closer, scanning. Clara stiffened, realizing the officer had recognized her interference. Her mind raced. There was no way to fight this alien directly. But if she could keep Nomi engaged with the controls, maybe she could create one more diversion, draw the officer away from the platform's edge. She adjusted the energy conduit again, this time sending a pulse along the railing. Sparks danced across the metal surface, momentarily blinding the officer and drones. Seizing the moment, Clara grabbed Nomi and leapt toward the ladder leading to the next deck. The officer roared in frustration, stepping back to avoid the sparks, and the drones followed, leaving a narrow window of escape. Heart hammering, Clara climbed faster than ever, muscles burning, Nomi's small claws digging into her shoulder. At the top of the ladder, she paused, catching her breath. Below, the shadow on the cargo deck shifted again, glowing ominously, and she realized with a jolt that it was no ordinary creature. It was aware, intelligent, and watching their every move. Nomi looked up at her, eyes bright and glowing, and hissed softly, smoke curling from his tiny nostrils. Clara's stomach twisted with both fear and determination. Whatever this creature was, whatever the aliens intended, she knew one thing: they weren't safe yet. And from deep within the ship's hull, a faint pulse began to resonate through Nomi's scales, like a heartbeat syncing with the ship itself. Clara swallowed hard, feeling the weight of what was coming next. Something ancient, powerful, and dangerous was awakening. The deck beneath them trembled again, and Clara realized they had just uncovered the true mystery of the ship, something far bigger than any patrol drone, far beyond the alien officer's authority, and far more connected to Nomi than she could have ever imagined. Clara's pulse raced as she clung to the ladder, Nomi pressed tightly against her chest. The top deck of the ship stretched out before her, a labyrinth of glowing panels, maintenance platforms, and exposed conduits. Sparks flickered across the floor as residual energy pulses from her previous improvisation danced through the ship. Every step she took brought them closer to safety, or closer to disaster. Below, the shadow moved again. The creature's massive body slithered between the crates and cargo containers, glowing eyes scanning the deck with uncanny intelligence. Its growls vibrated through the metal floors, low and threatening, echoing like a drumbeat of impending doom. Clara knew that if the alien officer and the creature coordinated, they could trap her in seconds. She had to act, and she had to act now. "All right, Nomi," she whispered, pressing the hatchling close. "We're going to finish this, together." The dragon hissed softly, wings fluttering, tiny claws scratching at her uniform. Clara smiled briefly despite the fear. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was moving forward anyway. Her eyes caught sight of a control panel on the platform above, partially concealed behind a stack of maintenance crates. It was an old diagnostic terminal, not fully operational, but if she could interface with it, she might be able to reroute the ship's energy systems. That could give them both a path to escape, or even subdue the massive creature below. It was risky. One miscalculation and the pulse could overload the conduits, causing a catastrophic chain reaction. Clara leapt across the gap between platforms, Nomi bracing himself on her shoulder. She landed hard, teeth gritted against the shock running up her arms. Sparks from exposed wires licked at her boots. The creature below let out a low roar, sensing movement, and the alien officer's voice cut through the deck, sharp and commanding. Drones began advancing, their metallic footsteps clanging across the platforms. Clara's stomach twisted. She was outnumbered, outmatched, and yet she couldn't stop now. Sliding Nomi down onto the terminal platform, she quickly began connecting energy conduits, rerouting power to isolated sections of the ship. The baby dragon stepped forward instinctively, tiny claws brushing the glowing controls. To Clara's astonishment, the lights on the platform pulsed in response to Nomi's touch. He wasn't just a passenger, he was interacting with the ship's systems on instinct, his natural energy harmonizing with the alien technology. Below, the massive shadow thrashed, confused by the sudden surge of energy. Sparks shot into the air, illuminating its grotesque, shimmering form. A creature with scales that shifted colors like liquid metal, tendrils of light running along its body. It was enormous, more intelligent than anything Clara had ever seen, and clearly aware of their interference. She swallowed hard. One wrong move now and they would both be crushed or worse. The alien officer, growing impatient, advanced cautiously toward the terminal, drones flanking him. Clara's mind raced. There wasn't time for subtlety. She needed to make a bold move, something unpredictable. With a sudden motion, she ripped a conduit from the wall and swung it toward the floor, sending a cascade of sparks arcing across the platform. The officer recoiled, shielding his face, while the drones hesitated, momentarily blinded. Seizing the advantage, Clara leapt onto the terminal console and pulled Nomi close. "We can do this," she whispered, her voice steady despite the chaos. She tapped into the terminal, connecting the ship's energy systems to a secondary grid. The lights around them pulsed, resonating with the faint glow from Nomi's scales. The baby dragon hissed, matching the rhythm, and the massive creature below paused, its glowing eyes fixed on them. A low rumble shook the platform. The ship groaned as energy surged through the newly connected conduits. Sparks and arcs of electricity flew, but the pulse stabilized, creating a barrier of shimmering light between Clara and the creature. Nomi squeaked, wings flaring, tail curling nervously as the barrier held. Clara felt a thrill of triumph and terror. They had gained a momentary advantage, but the danger wasn't over. The alien officer shouted, a sound more instinct than language, and surged forward again. Clara knew she couldn't hold him off with sparks alone. Thinking quickly, she grabbed a loose maintenance hatch, prying it free and swinging it toward the officer. It clanged loudly, knocking him off balance just as a secondary pulse from Nomi sent a wave of energy across the deck. The officer stumbled backward, drones scattering in confusion. Breathing hard, Clara realized they had created an opening, a narrow path to the emergency ladder leading to the upper decks. She scooped Nomi up, moving quickly. The massive creature below, frustrated and confused, lunged toward them, its glowing tendrils whipping through the air. Clara's muscles screamed as she climbed, sparks dancing around them. One misstep and they would fall straight into its jaws. Halfway up the ladder, Nomi hissed sharply, his scales glowing brighter. Clara followed his gaze and froze. A series of vents along the upper deck began to glow, responding to the energy pulse. Something ancient and alive was waking within the ship, far beyond the alien officer's authority. Clara's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about survival, it was about awakening something that had been dormant for decades, maybe centuries. The alien officer reached the base of the ladder, drones swarming, but Clara had the momentum. She swung herself over the last rung and landed on the upper platform, Nomi clinging tightly. The creature below let out a roar that rattled the entire ship, and Clara realized they had survived this encounter, but at what cost? Nomi's scales flickered with a strange light, synchronized with the ship's pulse. Clara's chest tightened. This was more than a dragon, more than a simple escape. He was a key, somehow connected to the ship itself. And if the alien officer or the massive creature below understood that, there would be no stopping the consequences. Clara hugged Nomi to her chest, whispering, "We're not safe yet, but we're alive." She looked down at the pulsing lights, the shadow moving below and the scattered drones, and realized that the real challenge was just beginning. A sudden, sharp vibration ran through the upper deck, and the ship groaned like it was waking from a long slumber. Clara's eyes widened in alarm. Nomi stiffened, wings fluttering nervously. The glow from his scales spread along the rails and platforms, brightening as if the ship itself was responding to him. Clara swallowed hard. Whatever had been dormant for centuries was now stirring, and they were standing right in the middle of it. From deep within the ship's core, a low hum began to resonate, growing louder with each heartbeat. The alien officer hissed, recoiling, drones faltering. Clara's eyes met Nomi's glowing gaze. Whatever came next, they would face it together, and there was no turning back. Clara pressed herself against the rail, Nomi tucked securely against her chest, as the hum from deep within the ship grew louder, vibrating through every metal beam and conduit. The upper deck shuddered beneath them, sparks flickering along the edges of exposed panels. The baby dragon's scales pulsed in rhythm with the sound, glowing brighter with each pulse. Clara felt the strange energy coursing through the ship, and a shiver ran down her spine. Something powerful was awakening, and they were standing right in the middle of it. Below, the massive creature on the cargo deck thrashed violently, tendrils of shimmering light whipping toward the upper platform. The alien officer shouted in a harsh, metallic tone, rallying the drones, but the creature's movements became chaotic, as if even they could sense the strange resonance coming from Nomi. Clara realized that the baby dragon wasn't just reacting. He was controlling, influencing the energy of the ship in a way no human or alien had ever managed. Clara's mind raced. They had to get to the ship's command hub. If she could interface with the primary controls alongside Nomi, she might stabilize the ship and create a path to safety, or at least keep the creature contained until reinforcements arrived. She scanned the upper deck, spotting a narrow maintenance walkway that led to the hub. It was risky. One misstep could send them plummeting toward the cargo deck below, straight into the creature's grasp. "Come on, Nomi," she whispered, moving toward the walkway. The dragon huffed softly, wings flaring, tail curling around her arm. He seemed to understand, ready to follow her lead. Clara's determination surged. She had faced impossible odds before, but nothing like this. She was outnumbered, outmatched, and outgunned, and yet her courage, her intelligence, her ability to act decisively was what gave them any chance at all. As they advanced, the alien officer appeared at the edge of the walkway, drones flanking him. His eyes glowed with a cold, metallic intensity, but Clara didn't hesitate. She grabbed a loose conduit and swung it across the platform, sending a cascade of sparks toward the drones. They scattered, screeching as the electrical arcs forced them back. The officer growled, retreating slightly, giving Clara the opening she needed to sprint the last few meters toward the hub. Reaching the door to the command hub, Clara fumbled with the access panel. Sparks flew as she forced the override, hands slick with sweat. Nomi hissed, tapping the panel with his tiny claws, and a surge of glowing energy ran through the controls. The ship responded instantly. The hum grew steadier, more controlled, and a faint shimmer of light spread along the corridors, forming a protective barrier. The massive creature below paused, tendrils twitching nervously, and even the alien officer faltered, sensing the shift in power. Clara exhaled, heart hammering. They had bought themselves time, but she knew it wasn't enough. The creature was too intelligent, too massive, to remain contained forever. She had to finish this quickly. She studied the terminal, recognizing patterns in the alien interface. Nomi stepped forward, instinctively touching the keys with his claws. The ship pulsed again, light synchronizing with his scales. Clara realized with a thrill that they were harmonizing, the baby dragon and the ship, working together through her guidance. A sudden tremor shook the hub. The massive creature below roared, its glowing eyes narrowing, and the deck quaked violently. Clara gritted her teeth. She had to maintain the connection, maintain the pulse, or everything would collapse. Nomi hissed, the light from his scales flaring brighter than ever. With a deep breath, Clara synchronized her own inputs, guiding the energy flow alongside him. Sparks shot across the panels, the ship's hum rising into a resonant chorus. The creature below let out a final, deafening roar before retreating, tendrils curling as if bowing to Nomi's authority. The alien officer and his drones froze, stunned. Clara's chest heaved, sweat and fear mixing with a sudden surge of triumph. Against impossible odds, she had outsmarted both alien authority and the awakened creature. Nomi chirped softly, curling against her shoulder, smoke curling gently from his nostrils. Clara laughed, breathless, feeling a warmth of relief wash over her. They were alive. But even as the immediate threat faded, Clara's mind didn't rest. The ship itself seemed alive now, humming with a deeper resonance that connected Nomi to systems she couldn't fully comprehend. Something had awakened. A force that no one had anticipated, not the aliens, not the security protocols, not even her. She realized that this adventure was only the beginning. Nomi stirred, wings fluttering nervously, and Clara felt a bond solidify between them. They had survived impossible odds, but the baby dragon was no ordinary hatchling. He was something more, a key to mysteries buried deep within the ship, perhaps the galaxy itself. Clara hugged him close, whispering, "We've made it this far, but I think the real journey is just beginning." From the depths of the ship, a faint glow pulsed along the walls and corridors, as if acknowledging Nomi's presence. The massive creature's roar faded, replaced by a low, steady vibration that resonated through the metal floors. Clara's eyes widened. Whatever lay within the ship's core, it had awakened because of them, and it wasn't done yet. She glanced back at the alien officer who had retreated to the far end of the platform, drones scattered and inactive. For now they were safe, but the officer's curiosity was only matched by the ship's newly awakened intelligence. Clara's fingers tightened around Nomi's claws. They had survived the immediate threat, but the mysteries of this vessel and Nomi's connection to it hinted at challenges far greater than anything she had faced so far. Taking a deep breath, Clara guided Nomi toward the ship's main corridor. Sparks from the previous surge still flickered in the panels, casting shadows along the walls. Her heart pounded with anticipation and fear, but also a deep, unshakable determination. Humanity had survived again, not through brute strength but through courage, intelligence, and compassion. She had chosen to act, to protect, to risk everything for something fragile and extraordinary. As they disappeared into the glowing corridor, a faint hum echoed from deep within the ship, pulsing like a heartbeat. Clara glanced at Nomi, whose scales shimmered brighter with every step. The baby dragon wasn't just alive, he was the beginning of something much bigger, something the galaxy had never seen before. And somewhere deep within the ship, beyond the glow and the hum, a door slowly creaked open, a path leading to mysteries Clara had yet to imagine. The adventure was far from over.